For this lesson, we're going to be working with something called Json and using Json in relation to local storage. So I have provided for you a starter file, and I put my script tag inside the JavaScript folder. I have an index page, and all the index page has on it is an ID with title. And so if I kind of refresh myself on what I have going on here on the scripts file, I'm created a situation where I have an event listener that's listening for the document to be completely loaded before it does whatever is inside the curly braces, the pink curly braces in this case. I created a variable for that h1 tag I showed you a moment ago, and I filled that h1 tag currently with waiting for content because I'm going to append to that or add to it later. This should hopefully look familiar now. We did these in some past videos. This is a custom JavaScript object that I created. It has some properties: title, developer, genre, release date, main characters, and features. And just to reiterate some points or to look at what we have, these first four properties have either string, or this one has a number as our data types. Main characters has an array as a data type, and features has a object of a data type. So if we recall, in order to print out any of those, we're going to have to drill down. In other words, if I wanted to, I'm just going to do a quick review here. If I wanted to do Animal Crossing, if I did something like this, that's going to output, spell it correctly, that's going to output the property of title, because I object and then the property, and there it is. And then if I wanted to output, if I output maybe main characters, recognize that that is an array, and so there's my array. And if I wanted to get to a particular element or loop through the array, just like we've done before, we can access a certain index number or use I if we're looping through an array. And then on the other side of this, if I wanted to get to, say, real-time clock, it's all the same thing. We need to keep drilling down. We start off with our main object. We would then find the first property, which is features, that is storing an object of the properties that we want to access. So first we have to address the object, then we address the property, and then we'll address the property inside that property. For example, real-time clock, and that should output true. So that's just kind of a refresher from what we've done before. I want to reiterate this idea, though. I'm going to make sure that I output console log Animal Crossing OBJ, because I want to make sure that we get comfortable seeing and noticing and being able to identify some of this syntax. So if we start to see something with a curly brace, then it kind of triggers us, and I kind of say this loosely because we'll see in a minute, triggers us that it should be an object, and that it has some properties, and then we can drill down and see that this particular property is an array and be able to identify that it's an array because it has the square brackets. Then we also want to be able to identify that that features is an object. So features is a property that has a data type of an object. So we really want to get good at being able to identify what our different data types are as we look at them in what otherwise looks kind of like weird syntax. So let's get comfortable looking at that. All right, I'm going to comment this out so I don't have it displaying here on my console. And I want to show you this part right here. I just put a console log so that I would have a title, so I'm not kind of confused on what it is that I'm looking at. So what I'm going to do before I continue on with this is you can't see it in the screen here, but I'm going to go to View, and when I go into View, I have Word Wrap checked, so that way if text extends beyond my window, it wraps down to the next line. Well, I'm going to undo that Word Wrap temporarily, because what I want you to see is what this is storing. This is actually JSON. And let me kind of bring this forward, because JSON is, under the hood, it stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So JavaScript, I'll just write it on here so you can see it, JavaScript String Object Notation. And what it is useful for is when we send data, and we're going to be doing this next week, when we send data or get data across the internet, that data is sent in a text form, and that text form is usually in this format called JSON. And so it's very common that we're going to receive or manipulate JSON data. So we have to kind of get a handle on what exactly it is. So what I've done here in this JSON string is I took our object that we had up here that has, square curly braces and all of the things we've been getting comfortable with. And what you'll notice now is this is the JSON version, the JavaScript object notation of that object up here. And you'll see there's the key value pairs, just like you see up here with our property and our values. Some things that you're going to see that are different, though, is that in a JSON, all of the keys and all of the values are required to be in quotations. So that's our first indication that these two are different. You'll also see that our JSON data is wrapped in a curly brace, which makes it kind of confusing because it makes it feel like it might be an object, right? And if I look at the end of this string, you'll see that it also ends in a curly brace. And this curly brace ends the object of features, and then this curly brace ends the JSON notation. And then you'll see that there is a quotation mark at either end. And so what JSON is a string, and I can identify that as a string because the whole thing is wrapped in quotation marks. This is an entire string of our key value pair. So we transformed, or this object was transformed into a string of key value pairs. And notice I intentionally took the word wrap off because I wanted you to see that there's no line breaks, there's no line returns, it's just one long string. And so I'm going to put that word wrap back on because I don't want to have it extend so far. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to console log that variable, Animal Crossing JSON string. And I purposely gave it this name so we could identify as we're playing with it what is it storing. It's storing a JSON string. And I'm going to go ahead and print it into the console. And I'm doing this intentionally because I want you to see that it is wrapped in curly braces. And I just got done telling you that curly braces generally identifies an object. And so if we look at our JSON string in our console, at first glance it kind of looks like an object because there are no quotations. Well, what happens is the browser notices that this is JSON, that it's a big string, so it's leaving the quotations off to try and make it easier for us. But in my opinion, it kind of makes it more confusing because it looks, at first glance, it looks like an object. But it's not an object, it's a JSON string. And I can prove that because I think that's important. If this was in fact an object, then I can do like we did up above here where I could console log, for example, let's just do it. So if I did a console log Animal Crossing JSON string and I wanted to get at, like, say, title, for example, if this was actually an object, which it kind of looks like it is, I shouldn't have any problem doing this, right? Because just like we did up above with our object, I can drill down and get just the title. But if I do it, then what you're going to see is that it's undefined because it's not an object. It's in fact a string. And I can also continue to prove to you that it's a string by doing this. I'm going to do type of and Animal Crossing JSON. And type of is a way for JavaScript to try to give you a clue what data type is being stored in that variable. And so if I do this now, you'll see that it is in fact a string. If I do the same thing, let's just, for comparison, if I do a console log type of, oops, I missed some parentheses here. If I do a type of and I do just this Animal Crossing OBJ, then you're going to see, let's just see what you're going to see. So if I do that now, what you're going to see is that it was an object. So Animal Crossing OBJ type of is an object. It's a data type of an object. And in fact, our JSON string is a string. It's not an object. And I'm really trying to make that obvious because when we look at it in the console, it is very easy to think that looks like an object, but it's not. It's a string. So I really am trying to emphasize to you or give you this visual of the difference between an object and a JSON string. and that we can't get to JSON strings individual pieces like we do with an object because it's just one long string.